This is Dr. David Allen. We've been talking about respect for the truth. And as you could see, as Ms. Atkinson has done in all his discussions about the Ten Commandments, these simple statements by God are very profound. And I began by saying, Professor Lawrence Kohlberg, one of my old professors at Harvard, would always say, these are the constituents of any society. That when the commandments go, the society starts to lose its cohesiveness. And maybe at this time in our country, the Bahamas, or this time in my own life, I have to look again at these commandments again and ask, how do I respect them? Mr. Atkins has made the very rational and clear point that without truth-telling, you really can't have a society. Because without truth, you can't have trust. And so where do we go, Mr. Atkinson? Heal us.
Let me just say this. Religion, which I have defined many times, it's very, very easy to develop a self-delusion. It's a very fertile ground, religion, for self-deception. Why? Because we don't want to believe in the hard truths. For instance, how many people believe in the devil? All the people that I talk with, they don't believe in the devil and the Satan and all that sort of stuff. They don't believe in it. Now, Jesus did. And he believed in it strongly. He cast out the devil. He says that, you see, what happens is people take the Bible and they pick and choose the ones that things that they like, and the things that they don't like, they put on the side. But Jesus believed in the devil, and so did God. He cast him out. And all the deception, the trickery. So in religion, we don't believe in the devil. And you take the D off the devil, what you've got? Evil. Oh, people don't really believe in evil. All the demons around in the air that were talked about in the New Testament and Paul referred to, no, we don't believe in that. We only believe in the gentle Jesus, meek and mild. That's the Sunday school stuff. We don't want the hard truths. You see, why? Because self-deception is far more comfortable than the truth. The vast majority of people, in my experience, prefer the self-deception.
Now, Ron, you made a very good argument for the thesis that, yes, life is broken and we've lost respect for the truth. What is Ron Atkinson's answer? How do we save society?
Well, for myself, I have found, looking within me, that I do not have the power. Ronald Atkinson, as a human being, does not have the power within me to combat the forces of the devil. And I believe strongly in the forces of the devil.
Is that discouraging as you become older and you've seen a lot of life, you've been very successful, and now you come to the stage in your life where you realize that I don't have the power to reform the system?
No, but I've long since realized that. Stan Ford spoke to me in the Liverpool boxing arena, as you and I know Stan Ford, and he told me, and I was, as you know, I was very attracted towards communism, which is atheistic in its essence. Suddenly, it came to me that God loved me, Ronald Atkinson, and thereafter my life changed, but there were a new set of principles that I had to live by, and I realized very, very quickly that Ronald Atkinson didn't have the power. However, the redemptive power of Christ, when I confessed Christ, when I accepted Christ, he gave me the power. Not my power, it's God's power.
So your answer to our situation is what?
The answer to our situation is that we human beings who are selfish by nature, that's our nature. I know me, I'm selfish. And we look after number one, very popular expression in the modern world. Our neighbor, well, we can forget about him, just like the minister going down from Jerusalem to Jericho. Oh no, I've got the service to attend to. This poor chap, someone will look after him. And then the Levite, the church elder, the same thing. But it was the despised Samaritan, the outcast, who looked after him, had compassion on him. Now, it's easy to go along through our lives with blinkers on. My grandfather had a business, and horses, I see them driving down Shirley Street today. The horse has blinkers. Why? Because you don't want to see out there. The horse just has to concentrate on what's ahead of him. Human beings enjoy putting blinkers on so they don't see what's happening out there to their neighbors. Jesus said, take off those blinkers. And the human beings don't want to do that because now they're going to have to be concerned about their neighbor, and they don't really want to do that.
You're saying we like our self-delusion?
Pardon?
You're saying we like our self-delusion?
It's easier to have self-delusions than it is to face the reality of what we are. Okay? Now, what Ronald Atkinson is, as I told somebody only in my office this morning, Ronald Atkinson is nothing. Whatever Ronald Atkinson has been allowed to achieve is because of the grace of God in his life. But I have backslidden many times. I've fallen short of the glory of God. I know that. And I keep on falling short. And when that happens, I am forced to my knees, either physically or metaphysically, and I submit myself back to the living God who created me and said, Lord, I have sinned. And that's a good thing to confess you've sinned. And I need your power in my life to correct that. And you know, there's a lot of things inside Ronald Atkinson which I simply do not like. And I have to tell you that. I wish they weren't there, but they are there. And so in order for me to live, to try to live, I need the power of God. I can't live it in my own life, you know. But
so truth-telling for you has become easier as you become older?
Truth-telling has become an absolute necessity.
I'm sorry.
It has become an absolute necessity.
As you become older?
No. On the Christian life, truth-telling is an absolute necessity because I belong to the redeemed community. I didn't redeem myself. I'm redeemed by Christ. But instead of far too many churches, as I see it, are running religious businesses. That's all they're running, religious businesses. And the greatest enemy of the Church of Jesus Christ is not outside, it's inside. The greatest enemy of the evangelizing church is the administrative church. The greatest enemy of Christ is the Antichrist, who's inside the churches, you know. And read the 7 churches, the letters to the 7 churches in Revelation. They're telling you about the problems in the early church. That was 20 centuries ago.
Ron, you put together a lot of information in our discussion tonight. And as you look worldwide and see this self-delusion, the lie becoming more preeminent, you're discouraged?
No, I'm not discouraged because I continually tell myself that this is God's world. It's not my world. It's not your world. It's not the people's world. God created this world. Let me just tell you, I've been reading 2 very good books, one by William Manchester, an American author, called The Last Lion, and the one by William L. Shirer, also an American, The Rise and Fall of the Third Reich, between 1932 and 1940. In 1940, when I was 5, and my father had been in the army for 2 years, and I was sent away to boarding school with my brother and 2 sisters, Hitler stood supreme in Europe. Mussolini, that jackal, was lapping along behind Churchill. Tojo, they'd conquered Southeast Asia, Japan, all right? They stood, and then you had Stalin waiting there. He'd taken up his share of Poland and Finland and the Baltic countries, and he was only waiting to strike to get... In other words, the forces of the Antichrist, if you want to call them that, were winning. And yet, what happened 5 years later? 5 years later, Nazi Germany was finished. Tojo's the Imperial Japan was finished. Mussolini, he'd been strung up upside down together with his...
And how do you explain that?
I explain that because the working of God, it's his world, and despite in 1940, you'd have said, how can we possibly win and overcome these tremendous demonic forces? Because Hitler was a demonic force. You read about him, you know. The concentration camps. We hear about in German, they're called Konzentrationslager, but there's Schunitzlager, which are extermination camps. Aufnichtslager, they're called. You were sent there to die. And that was a deliberate policy of exterminating people. And Stalin did it as well, you know, with his gulags, the archipelago. And he got rid of about twice as many people as Hitler did, of his own people. His own people. These demonic forces were at fault in the world, and within 5 years, and then of course we had the satellite countries, we had the Russia, but that all caved in. 47 years, as the Russian people call it, 47 years on the way to nowhere. I just went down the Elbe, all through the German Democratic Republic, the GDR as they call it. What is it to show them? I talked to a couple in Dresden. She was a sister in a hospital, he was a teacher, and they lived under the communist regime. They had no freedom. None at all. None. They weren't allowed to think for themselves. They were so happy now that they'd come out, and there they were in Dresden. You see, that in reading these two books in the last couple of months has given me tremendous assurance that God is in control, because in 1940 we didn't stand a chance.
So you're saying then, for the believer, we have to recognize that we are not in control, and we have to bow and realize our Father,
God,
who art in heaven.
This is God's world, and Jesus said, "He who has seen me hath seen the Father, for I and the Father are one." And I'm going to come back, and I'm going to send you the Holy Spirit, the Comforter, at Pentecost.
So the lie can only go so far.
The lie will only go so far.
And
the truth will eventually win. And
I remember.
That's the strength which I would like to give to anybody listening today.
Wow.
That the power of God is, don't listen to all that's happening in the world today, that's happening in the Bahamas. You're going to die. It is given unto once to every human being to die, and after that the judgment of God. And God, this is God's world, and He is in control, and if you believe that, then you can conquer in His name.
That's very hopeful. That's hope. Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah.
This is the victory that overcomes the world.
Precisely.
Even our faith. You know, my Latin teacher, Marjorie Davis, she used to say, "Magna est veritas, et semper praevalebit." Great is the truth, and it will always prevail. Mr. Atkinson said that as we pervade the world, and it felt kind of sad as we realized the emptiness of our desire to follow self-delusion and to live the lie, that he said, let's not be discouraged because we're not in control. God is in control. This is God's world.
Yes.
You gave the example of Germany. You gave the example of the fall of the Berlin Wall.
Right.
These things happened, and it just happened.
And
so the same faith that allowed those to happen allows us to have faith to look at our world today and to still aim to do the good in spite of all the negative.
God is in control. That's what's come to me when I've looked and reading these two books, both by American authors, and comparing. If you in 1940, judging by the history of the 8 years before then, we didn't stand a chance. But look where we are today, and because it's God's world, and He will bring it to fruition. You know, our concept of history. The major events that have happened to nations and to people, God is not concerned with the Assyrian, the Babylonian, the Medo-Persian, the Grecian, the Roman, and every other empire has disappeared into the dustbin of history. They've all gone. God's concern is for His people and Jerusalem, and if you read Revelation 21 verse 19, the new Jerusalem will be composed of only those whose names are written in the Lamb's Book of Life. All this church membership and all doesn't mean a hoorah. The question is, to every Christian, is your name written in the Lamb's Book of Life? Nothing else. And if your name is written there, then you have a responsibility not to tell the truth to your neighbor, whoever your neighbor is.
You know, it's so important, Ron, because your analysis is very bleak today. The politicians lie, the doctors lie, the accountants lie, the board people lie. And all of a sudden I felt, my gosh, it's over.
No.
But then you ended the session by saying, remember,
no, it's not over.
This is not our world.
No.
God's in charge.
He's in charge.
And our job is what? To follow him.
Our job is to follow
And
him.
that's a personal decision,
Oh, yes. And
which you made.
I made that, and I have to make that every day. And as I said, I have to fight my own natural nature. That's the cross I carry.
Wow.
And
How does one keep in contact with this perspective? It's so wonderful as you presented just now. How does one keep in contact with this perspective that God is in charge?
you have to keep reading the Bible, because that's his instruction manual, right? And you have to keep praying. We all pray in different ways. I woke up this morning praying. And
You say prayer, what do you mean?
Well,
read some prayers?
No, communicating with God. No, the best prayers are ad lib, where you tell God how you feel. That's what I do, you know. And he gives me his peace. My peace I give unto you, not as the world give I you peace. It's his peace, and it has nothing at all to do with this world. And it's a peace which comes from the inside out, not from the outside in. That's the big difference. And I've always said that the peace of this world is spelled P-I-E-C-E. It's a piece of something, whatever the something is. That's all. But his peace comes from, when I go out on the porch every morning, I thank God for spiritual strength, for mental strength, and for bodily strength. Physical health, mental health, and bodily health. Those in that order.
That's wonderful. You know, Ron, is always challenging because respect for the truth is a diminishing reality with spin doctors and powerful advertising and what have you. But your final point was step back and recognize we are not in charge.
No.
This is God's world. He's got the whole wide world in his hands.
Yes. Once you've realized that, then his peace invades your heart. And it doesn't matter what's going on outside. You know, there was peace in the German concentration camps, but on the south side of the Seine, Jean-Paul Sartre, he didn't have any peace. They were searching for something. And peace, you see, because in the midst of luxury, they couldn't find peace. In the midst of horror and hatred, they did find peace.
Wow. Thou wilt keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on thee. And you know, fellow Bahamians, as Mr. Atkinson has helped us to really look at this very serious issue. That we're all involved in the massive self-delusion, whether it's in politics, my field, medicine, or social work. We have to step back and recognize it's not about us. Recognizing that God loved us so much that he made a way for us to connect to him, because it's all about him and not about us. Our Father, who art in heaven. Thank you and good night.